Why would you... Okay, so if you pick Viego like you did beforehand, the enemy is just going to pick Volibear because now you banned Olaf.
Yep.
So now you have to go for the Volibear yourself. Yeah, there we go. But now you're giving over Viego. And while Volibear has been a pivotal pick in this composition, remember that is only vital because they have the priority to do so. And there you go. Viego Gwen going over to the side of OMG. I think for LNG there, you should have probably just banned out the Volibear yourself and just first pick Viego, go for the composition and maybe do something different. Yeah. But yeah, moving on to this blue side now. Last time we did see, I think, the Thresh to come out in this rotation together with the Sylas. You can still go for that if you want to right now. There is triple flexes on both the champions in the Viego and the Gwen, but no! Blind pick LeBlanc and Jax.
Oh, man!
Okay, that is crazy.
Okay. So really quick, like going into this third game, I was really amped up about it in the break because it was like, what do we get after game 1 and game 2, and then now game 3? We get the absolute damage compositions coming out, especially from LNG. They lock in that double of LeBlanc and Jax. I actually really liked Ale on the Jax last time around, just wasn't really set up for the rest of the team. I have not been liking the LeBlancs that I've been seeing recently, and now you're going up against the trio of that Viego, Gwen, Sylas now locked in for OMG. Gets a little bit scary.
It most certainly does, but you do have a great 2v2 with the Volibear and the LeBlanc. Like, the skirmish potential you have with this is absolutely crazy. Now, I can actually, now that I think a bit more about it, the Jax is a fine pick because you do decently fine into the Gwen and you do decently fine into the Viego as well. So just going for that pick, you ensure that even though these champions are triple flexes, if one of them are going top, you're still going to have a fine matchup. But obviously the bot lanes are going to suffer in OMG. I think they're having a bit of a PTSD from the first series with the Draven Thresh that came out from that one.
Hey, that's what you get. You get that respect when you're able to whip it out like that in game number 1, your first stage game of the LPL. Immediately, those two bans, you know why. The other side, Ezreal and Aphelios banned away from LNG, so a lot of that safety taken away, a lot of the team fight potential, but they are just going to lock in the Kaisa.
And this is a champion that Abel's been doing fairly well, and at the same time, it's a takeaway. Majority of the games that LP had in the LDL was on Kaisa. I feel like I think the most games he had on Kaisa was 20, and then the next champion that came in line was 6 games played. so like that's a huge takeaway from him as well.
Reliance. No big deal.
But we have seen him already on the Draven, now on the Varus instead, where you can still play a comfortable weak side. I feel like he still lack that immediate engage to follow up with the Volibear. Nautilus or Leona wouldn't be all too bad in this case scenario. Rakan does fine as well. That is Kedaya's most played champion after all, together with the Alistar. So lots of engage options are still up and available, and I'm glad they go for some for their arsenal here.
Yeah, I also think we talked a little bit about at the top of the day that comfort is still important for, you know, fresh players on the stage, and especially in this kind of moment when you are going to be very integral to how your team is able to take fights, right? Those engages are going to be very, very crucial, and that bot lane is going to be very crucial because now you still have that renewed bot lane of the Kaisa, Nautilus for Abel and Cole.
Yeah, but I feel like now from the side of LNG, top lane priority just has to be there. I want to see him dive, not from bottom, but this time up on the Gwen. This champion doesn't run flash. Yeah, you can get priority with the LeBlanc in towards the Sylas, move up towards the top side, and then just go for a dive with Tarzan. Like, I feel like these early skirmishes for both teams, they're going to be pivotal. They both compositions right now kind of want to do the same. So that's what we're going to be looking for. Finally, not the Volibear Olaf matchup. So I'm quite happy to see that.
There's one thing that's good. Yeah, no problem.
I mean, what a crazy rotation it came from as well, right? That we went from the Volibear first pick into Gwen Viego immediately, and this was something I wish we had seen in game 2 from the side of LNG, that when they saw that Gwen first pick, they just went for the Volibear themselves and started building something up for themselves. And we have already said it, this Volibear seems like he's just a champion for MVP votes because he's been getting all so far. So if we're following the trajectory, we should be able to see an LNG win just out of the Volibear, right?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's absolutely the case here. Get your free wins. Just pick up the Volibear. Just put on the bear suit here. But we are going into game number 3. Get to see the setups for all these teams. This last game on the rip for both these squads on this day. Want to see how this mid lane matchup pertains to the jungle and how that synergy is developed, that focus towards the top side of the map for both these teams. It's been topsy-turvy, it's been a ride, but the fireworks are on, and we've got LNG and OMG in game number 3 of the series.
And it's been very dominant so far, Mazel. Let's not forget that. Even though we are running to the 3rd game, it was not close by any means. The first two games we had, it was pure blue side domination. And I wonder now if we were going to get some of these early jungle shenanigans we've seen so far out of the entire series last time. We did see some early vision to come through from the side of LNG. We have seen that as well now with the jungle entrance. And we did see a fake leash to come through from the bottom lane. I wonder if they're going to do the same now that they have Rakan and Varus, or if they're going to try and obtain immediate pressure down in this bot side.
It does seem like we're getting same side starts for both junglers, as well as back to that game 1 leashless start for both of them too. See where that skirmishing lies down, because I think that was the big kicker in both the games for me. Was yes, the Volibear pick is huge, but it was the inactivity from the other side that was the biggest thing for me, because it felt like Volibear was just able to take control of the pace of the game and make the plays that then had to be reacted to. And when you're both looking for the early skirmish, looking for the early advantage in jungle, that is how you lose games quickly.
It most definitely is, but I want to say this time from both teams, they can stabilize. And I actually want to talk about both compositions here and how we necessarily don't need to look at them in a vacuum. Because if you do, you could say, okay, OMG's composition flat out just beats LNG in a team fight. If you just completely just throw them at each other. But that is not how you want to look at the situation. You want to look at it how LNG can prep the objective beforehand. When you have the mobility of a LeBlanc, when you have the poke to come out from a Varus. As LNG, when you're going up against OMG's composition, you want to play these fights slow. You want to be able to get some poke down, get out, get some poke down, to the point where OMG are not able to get their win condition to fruition, where they're not able to fight. So you don't want to look at this as in a vacuum. You want to look how they react to each other.
I think that's the crucial part here as we're racing for this early game. Both games so far been decided very, very quickly with very dominant Kedaya lines, at least early on, but this time around I want to see how quickly that does get started. Maybe some change-ups coming as we are in that 3rd game, right? Things maybe calm down just a tad bit. You play a little bit more restrictive, a little bit more respectful because of what's happened already. As Tarzan able to clear out some vision on the bottom side, we'll be able to get this bottom side scuttle, which means Aki can either choose to fight over this, go towards top lane. It looks like he's going to choose to fight. As I believe, it looks like actually Tarzan was able to get that one. Does get engaged on by Cold. Now you're getting the TP play. This is the level 3, level 4 fight that we were looking for potential. And Tarzan's down. You've got resets coming in now, but Aki is taken out by Ale, who joins the fight late, but makes a huge impact for LNG. Creme gets taken out as well. The flash forward, and Icon gets it. Ale in some trouble against Abel, but maybe wants it as the counter-strike pop, but will just war jump over the wall and get out. LNG striking early.
Yeah, the early game just never seems to disappoint us in this series coming in with this one. But New had the TP, opted in to not join the fight, and he wanted to get some resources on the top side instead. So when this finally breaks out, I'm not too sure why OMG decide to overforce this as heavily as they do. Just because the level 1, the champions right now from the side of LNG, they just spike better. They do better in a skirmish like this, and you're able to see that in the outcome as well. I think from the side of Ale, he could have been a bit more hesitant with flashing over, just turning on Creme, getting his recall in immediately, because while this happens, he is losing some resources on the top side of the map. So while he did get a kill for himself and the double buff, he did lose out on some of the experience department.
See how that can be turned, if anything, in the top lane. Double buff on Jax. This is going to be really nice for the lane, though, against New, where New has had some pretty incredible performances on the Gwen, especially last game, but even in game number 1, wasn't too shabby on the pick. Gwen itself just a very strong pick, especially when you get further into the game. But now we got to zone back in onto what is happening on the Rift. We've got Dragon up. Very heavy focus in game number 1 from objectives on LNG's side when they were on blue. See if they put that in yet again. Last game, not so much from OMG. We're still seeing a lot of presence around mid lane. Last game as well, I just want to highlight, Cold was a key factor to OMG getting started. Those roams were huge. He was constantly a presence on the map. He's already getting the roams off early this time. as I do
Oh,
believe.
I'm back. Looks like I had a small disconnect myself here.
I was just about to say, I don't know if I've lost you, if I've been lost. I don't know. We're all lost at this point, but luckily we're all in the LPL, right?
Yes, there we go. Oh no, I think I've seen something like this beforehand, but they do have the vision towards the Alcove here. I wonder if that's going to spot Tarzan when he walks forward. Nope, Kedaya there immediately to shut it down. But with this priority on the bot side, they should be able to move up towards the river, establish vision control for themselves to make sure that the dragon is in a comfortable spot so when they feel like taking it.
Oh, Tarzan getting surrounded down there on the bot side of the map, though. Has a lot of CC to deal with coming out from OMG. Kedaya almost gets hooked by Cole, not going to do so. Kedaya able to get away.
Yeah, obviously Rakan, one of the supports with a lot of mobility in the kit, so nothing to worry about on that front. But now with bot lane priority established, LP is going to be able to join the little skirmish for vision control as well, and they should be able to put this back in favor of the LNG, and that's kind of what you're playing around with. Wave control is much like a pendulum. When you push it in, you have time for yourself, but the wave will always be bounced back to you, and that's when you need to be ready to pick it up. So every time the waves bounce back and forth, that's when you see the teams fight for control.
And you see that control being started over. Bot lane is the objective focus. Potentially, I thought coming out, they've got the bodies here. They've got 3 members from LMG's side, but they decide not to do it as it is warded up by OMG. Not that they knew that that was happening, but still, not any early objective focus. Still been 2 minutes on the Dragons. It is just a Cloud Dragon early on, no big deal. But I was expecting some stacking to come through for both these teams, at least to be a priority for both of them. Not going to happen this time around. We're getting close to the potential guillotine, though, for LNG is it's about to circle that 8-minute mark, and we were talking a lot about their Rift Herald setup. Game number 1, maybe they bring back some memories of that one, though.
Yeah, they do. Oh, inventory for Icon. Okay, he did just undo that, but he was buying 2 he's buying 2 Oblivion Orbs. I'm glad he sold that, or at least refunded it.
He went back to an Oblivion Orb, at least.
Yeah. But yeah, Icon had no mana, so right now Creme actually has set a little freeze for himself up in the mid lane where he's... Oh, never mind, the wave is actually crashing on the turret. But what we need right now is for Icon to have blue buff, because that's the only way that he, realistically speaking, can keep these waves shopped in to have the priority from mid lane to fight around. If he does not have blue buff on the LeBlanc, it can become very hard for him to keep the skirmishing up and keep the mid lane pressure up at the same time. And you can actually see, because of this, because he's needed to bag for mana, he's actually a level down in this matchup.
That's kind of rough here. You do also have some attention being focused by Aki towards this mid lane. He was pinging out, I believe, this Rift Herald for the longest time. Does have a lot of presence up there, but the rest of LNG deploying to the top side of the map as well. Looks like we're going to get another tussle early at 8.5 minutes. OMG realized what could be coming. They've got a lot of warding going on here as well on the LNG side of the jungle, but they're going to commit to this Rift Herald. 2,000 health on it. You've got a nice flank coming on here from Icon on the side. They're going for the full engage. Stormbringer to boot, and OMG are going for it. Creme has found Kedaya, and now Tarzan running away from the rest of OMG as they turn over the fight. Oh, Icon.
Classic LNG Rift Herald. Classic LNG Rift Herald. They just can never fight this. We've talked about this so many times that they misread the lack of priority. They walk in with Kedaya face shaking. He's not level 6, so it's not like he's going to be able to pop the quickness to turn and engage out of this. And they just get the kill. They get the Rift Herald when you could have clearly either just put resources into LP where he was going to get some plating for himself. You could have cross-mapped it instead. You could have stacked the first Drake for yourself. But no, you decide to opt into a losing fight, and therefore you lose the tempo on the map, you lose the Rift Herald, and you should be losing out on the first Drake as well.
Hey, you never lose it for free. At least Tarzan coming to make some noise down towards the bot side. Dragon not going to be started up, but LNG looking for a play on mid. Stormbringer is available. Creme trying to get out with the Absconda Buck, as well as the Kingslayer, but the chains are going to get Icon a kill as he does get popped by 1 turret shot, but it's still LNG able to respond.
That was so close by Creme to make that a completely insane outplay. He actually abducted this distortion that came out from the LeBlanc to stop the damage from coming out of that LeBlanc. Really close from the side of OMG, and Creme almost having that outplay potential, but still. Drake was actually stopped due to that little skirmish as well, but they should be able to go for it whenever they feel like it. Just looks like both teams right now don't care about the Drake stacking.
Yeah, I mean, it's been alive for 5.5 minutes now, but it's been hovered over, right? We've seen a lot of presence down towards this bot side of the map, but neither team really feeling too confident in it. Rift Herald now spawned by Aki in the mid lane. Gonna get some plates there, at least 2 of them. A little bit of gold. Cold actually waiting over the wall. Has flash available. They want to punish Icon. Beautifully done, beautifully timed. The CC chain is too much, and Cold does it again.
How many times have we seen this play coming out from him today? I feel like that flash over the wall is just becoming signature. I've seen it at least 3 times already. And he does it again. Last time with the Zoe on the portal. This time with LeBlanc on the distortion. This guy is so dangerous with his roams.
He knows where you're going to be, and he's there before you even thought. That's so many times that we've seen the predict, at least on the movement of the Zoes, the LeBlancs. It's huge, and it's enabling OMG's play style.
It genuinely really is, and that's putting Creme in a great spot as well, where the further we get into this game, the more items he starts picking up. He can contest the LeBlanc on the wave control, and you know, I already feel like we are at this point where Icon doesn't really have too much to do on this LeBlanc. They had that one good skirmish in the beginning, but before he finishes up the Ludens or the Everfrost, it's going to be some time before they can really start creating skirmishes around him. And until we hit that mark, it looks like OMG, they're going to just be using him as a point of attack to get some of this extra priority with Cold once again out of the map. So that's going to be great. But one thing that LNG always will have going for them is the fact that Ale now has finished up the Blade of the Ruined King, and there's not too many champions on the side of OMG that alone in a vacuum 1v1 can deal with the Jax. The further we get into this game, the further LNG are able to stall it out. They should be able to open up the map more. The only thing I'm worried for LNG is that they're not very good at playing a style that's not team fighting. Even when they have compositions that don't team fight, they say let's team fight, and then they lose because they have compositions that don't team fight. So I'm worried for LNG because their win condition is something they've been unfamiliar with, but nonetheless there is still something they can play for going into that mid game.
Yeah, there definitely is, and as we speak about it, the Dragon went down finally to OMG. The cross-map play came out from LNG, though. It's Tarzan able to get a decent amount of farm on the other side of it. And New actually taking a pretty heavy trade against the Bear, who's not taking a lot of damage at this point. Do have some backup from Aki up here. Does also have his ulti available. The resets aplenty and abounding. I was going to say Icon's roaming up as well. Hopefully Aki doesn't overextend there. Won't happen. Looks like we're going to go back to good graces for the moment for both sides.
Yeah, but remember we also talked about proactivity today, right? And ever since that skirmish came through from LNG, they've just not been able to actually execute on it, or equalize on it rather. And they do still have a small gold lead, but they're too afraid to commit to some of these plays. And we've always talked about it. LNG per 15 minutes doesn't do a lot in reality, and I think what we saw in game 1 today, we already addressed it. Super surprising, not something we would have ever expected to come out from LNG. Now we're going back to normal LNG. LNG that takes a while getting into this game. LNG that spikes at 25 minutes into the game, rather than now. And now, Cold over the wall with a Hex Flash. I've seen this one before.
LP doesn't fall for the bait this time around, does miss the Chains of Corruption there, and just goes down to Abel.
And there you go. It just seems like these walls, Cold with the Hex Flash, you can never be too sure. Every time there's a wall that needs to be a ward on the other side of the map, or else he's just going to be able to go for plays like that. Now, in the mid lane, it looks like they are setting up for a bit of a small dive, or trying to catch someone out instead, but no one's really falling for it just yet.
Oh, Abel might have fallen for it here, as that's a beautiful grand entrance from Kedaya. Abel not going down just yet, does finally die to Tarzan, but they've also found the replacement kill for it. And now you've got a Stormbringer of your own coming out from Creme, and Tarzan dies to Aki. The resets are here, and the Bear is mad. Does LNG move forward with it? They do not. They will continue to take priority over mid lane.
And Tarzan held on to that Volibear ultimate for way too long. Kedaya taking way too many turret shots, and he was using the ultimate to get out afterwards, but you need to be proactive. You need to be able to pull the trigger immediately to blow up a target. They weren't, and Icon was even forced to flash away from the turret as well, just because he started up with the tanking. Really not a good dive to come out.
Ooh, Icon looking for it on Creme, but Creme gives it right back. Icon has to get away from that fight. That was way too close.
And these fights are starting to become a bit too close. Now the gold lead is in OMG's favor, and it kind of seems like they start getting a bit desperate, but this should have been way cleaner. There is Flash on Kedaya, obviously Abel has it as well. We can see Icon starts out by taking 1 tower, 2 tower, forced to get away from this one, then Kedaya 1 tower, 2 tower, he's dead. And then you Stormbringer away from the turret when you could have been disabling it this whole time. This is the reason Volibear is so good, because you can literally make turrets not work, and they didn't.
Yeah, if Magical were here, he'd be saying something about Homewrecker lives again! Something along those lines. But you gotta appreciate it that you do get a ton of value out of it, but it wasn't utilized that time around. Now we have LNG picking up the tempo here. They're taking the Rift Herald for themselves, while OMG are maybe looking to respond. They do have Aki over here, but it would be really, really tough to get in the pit. That's gonna be a Rift Herald given over to LNG.
Just tempo advantage coming out for OMG, or for LNG rather. They're Cold and Able. They're still in base walking towards that Rift Herald, so realistically speaking, there was no fights to be had. But that is huge. The fact that you can make sure that your enemy is not going to be able to accelerate that small gold lead they have right now with the Herald is great. I don't even care if LNG is not able to fulfill this Herald usage. I'm just glad from their part that OMG didn't get it, because for OMG to get this right now, they'd be able to just try and run over any lane there is on LNG outside of the top lane.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that the Volibear not having the biggest, I mean, it still had a pretty big influence, not having the same kind of influence we've seen in the last 2 games, but Aki on this Viego is looking mighty fine. It's very, very scary, as those resets have been working out so well in the favor of OMG. But now we got to revitalize our looks towards bot lane, potentially, as Icon maybe gets caught out by Creme up here at some point. But the Dragon spotting in 20 seconds, not that super important, but the pressure on the map is, and you already see OMG having a lot of bodies down there.
What is Creme doing? He keeps recalling, canceling his recall. He doesn't want to go for Icon. He's on the turret, right?
Give up the tower.
And then he stops it again.
Stay. Okay, well, you know, things happen sometimes, and you don't quite know why, but maybe he's going to finally back there. It does look like it's eventually going to come through. And the Dragon as well.
And there we go. Now Herald was up, so they could have used that for any proactive usage, or at least to try and get some pressure. But LNG, they're just not feeling themselves yet. They don't want to start any dive whatsoever. But they do feel themselves to try and start some counter jungling here. I think they're going to be able to steal away the red buff, but after that, they need to get out.
We also got the best thing that we could ever ask for in the script, with an Infernal Dragon on the Rift here for this 3rd game. 2 up already for OMG. Gotta realize that now that at least pressure is up to get the Dragon objectives. An early stack into the Infernal Soul would be huge for this team composition all the way across the board.
Yeah, you're completely right, but you can also see that Ale now is starting to get in a position where he can threaten you, and that's not a moment short of what you wanted here, because you really need this pressure to come through when these next strikes starts getting involved. We've already established that OMG and a straight up 5v5 will be able to come out ahead just because of how the nature of the composition works. But on the other side of LNG, they have awesome measures to get pressure in this game. They have the Jax in a side lane, but they also have the poke that can come out from LP and Icon, who's probably just not going to be playing, you know, LeBlanc in a team fight. It's not really a thing. What LeBlanc wants to do is play around the cooldowns of her abilities, and that's what we need to see from them as well. So that is how LNG accelerate their lead. That is how they play towards their win conditions, by finding other measures to win these fights rather than just engage with them immediately.
And the LNG itself, they're going to have to find a way to use this Rift Herald pretty quickly. It is going to be coming up here, and you do see Tarzan back on the map. But I also want to focus in on what we've gotten in this series so far, right? We're just about to hit this 20-minute mark. It had been bloodbaths in game 1 and 2. And while we've got a decent amount of action here in this 3rd game, it is nothing like those games. You feel the respect, the caution coming out from both these teams, because they do not want to give up a game at this integral moment in the season.
That's the thing, right? You can come into the first game of the series and feel quite bold and try to do things, but as soon as you're down to that last game of the series, that is when it does start to get a bit more tense. That is when you don't want to drop the ball and lose any games moving forward to the playoff contest race that we already have, and it's quite competitive between the teams. LNG right now plays 4th. OMG, they're placed 8th. But if they win against LNG right now, then they're ahead of them. That is crazy to think about it. That is how close LPL is at the moment.
We are seeing the side lanes be the focus right now. OMG able to take a tier 2 tower in the bot lane, but a or a tier 1 tower, sorry, a tier 3 tower. The numbers, but tier 2 tower falls on top lane to LNG. All that extra gold goes in. They also get the Rift Herald in mid lane. A lot of potential damage to be done to OMG's base here. They
do get the second charge or the charge off there. He's fine. He's fine. No flashing new. He can jump out with the Q, obviously, little leap. And he didn't have any more wards, but the mini waves was always come into him there. Now, though, with the resets to come through from the side of LNG, because they did commit for a lot up towards the top side, they did go for Herald uses in the mid lane. It's up to OMG. I was going to say they can establish a Baron Vision. Not started. Okay, they've just started it.
Yep, they took your call, they ran with it. They got a TP on the flank, but is it going to be too late? OMG already finding the resets for Aki, and they've already got LP2, Tarzan gone. And that's a big turnaround for LNG, though. Icon able to get one. There's still 4 strong members in the Baron pit. Do you really want to start this? Looks like they're going to think better of the moment. LNG still around to punish, still around to get punished, as Cold taking a lot of damage from Ale on the side. Creme now able to separate the team. Cold gonna go down to Kedaya, who is able to pick apart OMG. And now LNG feel confident to move forward.
Great navigation of their champions there in that team fight from LNG, where they're able to split up the members of OMG and pick them apart there with the kill on towards Cold. But you could see the idea of OMG that they knew with the Kaisa gone they couldn't go for anything. Knew, though, needs to be a bit careful with Kedaya around, but Aki is around the corner, so they're not going to commit. But once again, OMG, they had a decent idea with that one there, just trying to bait it. And up towards this top side, that's going to be what starts everything here. Ale just getting bursted down and forced to flash away from the last needlework, and then going in towards this one. Yeah. I feel like they were a bit too aggressive from the side of LNG. It took some time for Icon to join the fight. He was TPing, but he was channeling up, so the members of LNG, they were just not there at the same time, so the tempo was a bit off. And then as soon as the Kaisa goes down, OMG, they're just trying to play for picks. They're trying to bait the enemy in, but they end up baiting themselves.
Crazy turnaround of events. A neck-and-neck game right now. About 2,000 gold in the lead is LNG. We have third dragon of the game spawning live. This could be soul point for OMG. But LNG setting up in front of the pit. This is where things have been tricky before, but they were able to get the objective before it even matters. Now maybe the fight afterwards as well. Cold just caught out completely from Ale, who is feeling himself on the 2-item power spike. Icon going forward as well, and New is obliterated.
And it finally starts working out for LNG with 2 members down now. You can start threading Baron instead. Aki does still have Smite, and he is still alive, but this is a 5v3 situation that should heavily favor LNG.
They want it. There's the quickness popped by Kedaya. Has to get away afterwards, but Creme is already dead because of it, and Tarzan has secured another kill for LNG. This is dire straits right now for OMG Cross, because it is LNG's time to shine. And we're getting close to that 25-minute mark, right when they have the power stroke to really finish game.
And this should certainly swing the gold lead in favor for LNG. I don't see how OMG can get into this one and contest. So not only did LNG start off that play by getting Drake, they also get the kills afterwards, and now the Baron. All the tempo OMG had set themselves up for is completely diminished by the side of LNG of one play.
Oh, they want it, Abel! He misses the chain. The Stormbringer doesn't miss, though. And Tarzan can't find Abel. He finally does. LNG going forward still. Ale is so strong on this Jax, but New is too. And New with the needlework, the snips. He gets 2 back. Cold can't do anything there. He's going to get an engage and get engaged on himself. Everfrost comes out from Creme. I was going to say, you might have just doomed yourself as well. But although LNG lose 2 members, 3 go down for OMG, and LNG have Baron buff. They're pushing mid.
Yeah, not only 3, all 4 of them, except Creme is actually going down in that exchange. So 3 members with Baron. Surely he's going to be able to open up this mid lane turret. I wonder if they have the time to go for the mid lane inhibitor, as death timers are still very short. And OMG, yeah, they are backing off now since OMG is back on the map. But there you go. Abel just a bit too far forward here, getting caught off guard. And remember, no flash from the early exchange we had around Baron. So there was nothing he could do as soon as he got engaged on. And when this fight breaks out, yeah, Gwen, it does Gwen things and does a lot of damage, but there's no way you're going to be able to take care of the rest of the fight. I'm not too sure why Cole opts in for this one.
You know, maybe just wanting to play his life with his teammate there. Not going to find it, though, and a bit of an unfortunate situation as they go down in tandem, but still able to pull back a couple kills for New on the Gwen. This Gwen is scaling. Got to be careful, though, because you're facing across the way of a 4-0-3 Jax working on his third item of the game. And what I love here from LNG is they do not want to let up the pressure, right? They've got a huge gold lead, and they feel it, and they know it. You see it coming out in the gameplay, and especially from Icon, who's feeling so confident on this LeBlanc.
Yeah, you completely right.
God, Creme just almost
insane
dies.
Amount of damage that also starts coming out now. Remember, AD carries in this meta don't really matter too much until we get to the mid game, until they finally started to pick up their items. It's the 3-item power spike we usually look at, but the poke to come through from the Varus, from the LeBlanc dashing forward now, that should be able to let them siege up these turrets with the Baron.
Multi-lane siege coming in from LNG, looking on the inhib in mid lane for Ale, who's going to quickly be able to make work of that one. Siege still down here. Chains of Corruption do go wide for the engage. LNG maybe looking for it as Ale now able to transition into the 5v5. Actually still just looking for the 1v1 against New. The tower's getting oh so low, and then they can start to work on the inhib if they want to continue to press forward. The minion waves are still pouring in here. They got one backing up in the bot lane. They've also still got the one in mid. They've got a ton of pressure, and that second inhib down for LNG as they're going to continue. Maybe the Baron buff is gone. Maybe you want to second guess that. Ooh, Icon barely skips away from that dredge line.
Yeah, Cole trying to thread the needle there, but Icon, as you said yourself, just barely gets away from that one. Did still have the flash if it became too close, but they're going to go for the reset with this one. With no Baron off minions, it's easy for OMG, despite their slow wave clear, to make sure they can at least trim the waves when they are in front of their Nexus with the 2 Nexus turrets to come through. But now, with the resets to come through from LNG, with Icon picking up the blue buff, with the members starting to get around this Drake, they should be able to find themselves in a comfortable position. But remember though, OMG, they do still have team fighting strength. If one member gets picked up by Cold here, that could be disaster for LNG. So we're looking for the poke once again from the side of LNG. We're looking to play patient game and not just rush in.
Well, what do we have here? Another Dragon contest towards the bot side of the map. LNG moving in here. They've got a flank as well, but OMG call their bluff. They take the fight early, but can they even? There's the Heartbreaker coming out, but it doesn't get the execution. They're still alive. They've taken down LP as well. Cold and Company are taken out here, but there's still 3 strong members of OMG, and Icon and Kedaya are left to run. Dragon still on the table here for OMG after they take the fight, but New gets taken out by Icon as Aki goes in too, as this is huge to turn around. Can they get a TP from Creme? LNG are running now, but Dragon started up again by OMG. Oh, they're losing their base right now, though. They got to be careful.
Nexus turrets as well. They really have to. But once again, LNG and misplaying their team composition, okay? You need to play patiently. There you go.
Icon is doing so much damage right now. Aki gets into the mist, able to get away for a little bit longer. But man, that LeBlanc combo with Kedaya on the Rakan as the base is just getting avalanched on by super minions.
But once again, why are you taking a 4v5 fight when the TP was still being channeled by Icon? You see what he's able to do in a fight. Why are you walking this far up? Just keep the poke up. Get the vision control down instead, rather than going for an immediate engage. This is absolutely insane against the team compositions like OMG, and had it not been for Icon, they would have thrown away their leads in that very instance.
Not be throwing away leads in these kinds of situations when the game is so breakneck, but the dips and the dives, the ups and the downs in this team fight are crazy, as the replay was going to keep on rolling because they are still crazy amounts of damage to be done by Icon in that moment. But we're back into tension. We're back into the moment where both these teams have this series on the line.
Yeah, remember Baron spawning and yeah, actually just now. And that's going to be the last thing that LNG really needs to take care of OMG because they don't have the best wave clear. So Baron up minions are not something they deal well with. So if they're able to push them off, if they're able to poke them down, make them come into your fucking wall, this is an ideal scenario for LNG. But if Cold gets that good engage, it's
Chains
over.
of Corruption, Cold's in some trouble here. The Aftershock does buy a lot, but that's a big amount of CC from LNG. They haven't found any members just yet, but numbers are very, very low for OMG. New wants to go back in, but he's all by his lonesome. Now you got Abel moving in as well. Stormbringer over the wall from Tarzan. It's LNG and OMG, they're trading blows, but nobody's going down.
They are really not. And can we talk about that illegal damage that came out from New with that last needlework? That just did an insane amount of damage and forced them all to get away from that one. Now, Supers are still up, but I feel like the inhibitor should be respawning in just a few moments. But LNG, they don't care about that. They're straight back on towards the Baron.
Can't do anything to stop it. You got to get back. You're not set up in a position for success. You've got no ultimates on the side of OMG. So you just got to give up the objective. This is a huge moment for LNG as they've already got super minions pouring into the bottom side to that mid lane as well. And now they can set their sights on that top lane as well as split push to just make life so difficult for OMG.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you know, you said it yourself that the split push, there's only one outer turret now, or inner turret standing for OMG, which is the top side of the map. So what LNG can do now for themselves is that they can just set up a 4-1. They don't need to have the pressure to come in through from all lanes here, because there is only one Nexus turret standing for OMG. They're already under a lot of pressure. So with the resets to come through now from LNG, you take a look on towards their items, and you can see LP actually bought a Sonya's hourglass for himself.
Yeah,
he's all about the disengage. He's all about keeping himself alive. And then Rabadin, Stefkev, Icon, 3 items now. Volibear, 3 items. The Jax, the 4 items to come through now. This is where they are extremely scary. And you need to play for the pick potential OMG. You need to find that instant engage. Because if you don't, you'll just get sieged down by the members of LNG.
And that's what I love so much about this game. It's like we're not even scaled. We're scaling to an infinity at this point. 32 minutes in. We've still got everything on the line. Builds to be completed. And to have those quick games, those dominant games, and now we get the banger that we're getting in front of us. LNG want to make quick work of it, though. They are getting engaged on. Tarzan has to use the Stormbringer. You've also got Creme on the back, but OMG a little bit disconnected here as Ale is taking a 1v1 on the New, and OMG are just getting pulled across. They might be in some trouble here as they have found damage onto Cold. Cold is down. Creme behind everybody, but he's going to be taken out too. Stormbringer out, gives him some help, but New is back into it here. If he can take the damage, if he can do the work, but Creme has to get away. Creme dies to Icon here. Yes, he does. And LNG, they're moving into the base. The TP's coming down. They want to end it.
They want to, but there's still the fight going.
God.
There's still something they can do about it.
They can. They're getting the re-engage here. OMG are losing their members left and right, though, as the gold lead. The difference right now is all in favor of LNG. OMG make it a series. We have a heck of a kickoff to the second day of the Super Weekend, but LNG are going to close it out 2-1.
And just realize how good this day is going to be. This was the game we started out on. LNG that had been slumping. The same for OMG that had looked less convincing coming into this one. And yes, you can argue the first 2 games were quite one-sided. But coming into this third one, it was back and forth between these 2 teams. But LNG, they find their form around the objectives and they get the victory. Now, you can argue there still needs to be a lot of work with that early game. The productivity lacked once again. They got a good skirmish in the early game, then did nothing. OMG took over, and then they had to come back once again in the late game. LNG's average game time coming into today was the second slowest of LPL at 32 minutes. When did we end the game? At 33. So yeah, we still have some of the same issues.
They were on their timers for sure, the ones we set out at the beginning of the day. It's kind of funny to see, but also just the tenacity to come out of LP and Kedaya in the bot lane. Gotta appreciate that one, being able to pick up this win as well and get that surge back online for LNG, this team who is at the top of the standings.
You're completely right about that one. And you know, when I'm comparing the 2 bot laners, from form, it's not like I see too much, but it seems like decision making around bot side is different. It seems like it's the different voice you have in these players are having some impact onto this game, and it looked like the rest of them, they felt more confident to go for some of these actual team plays that we don't see too often with LNG. Often with LNG, it feels like, oh, you just have 5 good members who's playing together, but this time around, we did still see some of that great team play, especially in game 1, that I'd like them to replicate more from what we saw in game 2. Really not what we like. But this game, look at that gold graph, back and forth, and then LNG with the gold advantage.
Just absolute dominion over at the end. Almost 10,000 gold there, but what really sticks out to me is this damage chart, right? New making a good attempt, Abel doing well himself, but it's across the board on the other side for LNG. Icon having a heck of a performance on this LeBlanc, where I was a little bit of a naysayer about it, able to turn that one around, find the ins into the composition, but Ale as well on the Jax, the second pickup in the series, but a much better performance and much more dominant performance from him.
Yeah, the thing is with the Jax matchup is that you won't do too much in a team fight setting, but if the game goes even and you get to this mid to late game that we already talked about, you start having so much pressure. If you're even with the Gwen, she can't do anything about you. Like, she'll need more people to take care of you, and this is what kind of opens up the map for the side of LNG. Now, I don't think they played too much around this. I still think they could have played a bit better to their team composition. We do still see some of the same mistakes where it's like, do we want to poke our opponents down with the Varus and the LeBlanc, or do we just want to run into their face? And they run into their face, where it's just like, it can be very much cleaner than this. And if you go into these fights where you had not picked up the Baron beforehand, where you had not gotten that gold lead, you would have flat out lost the game if Icon weren't as fed as he was on the LeBlanc.
Yeah, I'm really wondering... okay, we just got the information as well. It's going to be Icon picking up the MVP. I was going to ask, it was like, maybe we get Volibear 3 times in a row, but no, it's not going to happen. Icon picking up the 8th. Count them. That's a lot of MVPs, 8 of them for this man in the mid lane for LNG. And this performance, especially in game number 3, in this pivotal moment on this LeBlanc, was huge.
Yeah, you know, it's not actually like he had good laning phase. He was down, inexperienced in the laning phase. Things were not working out for him. They didn't find the skirmishes, but it's in these team fight scenarios. It's in these scenarios where he's able to accelerate with the ground he's creating, with the chains, with the pickups he's finding. There you go. Once again, Icon, the one all the time being the man forward, trying to find some of the plays. And if he's not the one who's finding the plays, he's the one solidifying them, like this Baron Drake dance they had instead, where he's just one-shotting up the members, playing around the fog of war. Yeah, Creme does spot you on the sweeper, but once you spot him, you know it's already too late.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate in those kinds of circumstances, but it's also just super scary to see a LeBlanc play. I like that, right? But I got to highlight also Kedaya, like always on the follow-ups on the Rakan. I think that Rakan was huge. It's obviously one of his most played champions, right? But it was one of the key things I wanted to look for going into the day for LNG is finding comfort for these new members, finding a little bit of something that can bring out the personality of these players. And Kedaya was able to show that today, as well as LP, with what they were able to bring in this 3-game series. Pretty good experience to have for your first one.
Yeah, I genuinely think so. Like, this was a good look for the early game from them. So LNG, I'm hoping they can keep up what we saw in game 1 and take away the positives rather than the negatives.
Yeah, indeed. But it does sound like our interview is ready to go. We'll be hearing from Tarzan today. Excited to hear about him and the matchup against Aki.
Hello everyone, here we have Tarzan from LNG with us, and before this interview he told me like maybe I can ask a question in Chinese because he got a confidence to answer it, and this is the first time we have seen LNG players here, so could you say hi to all the audience here? 首先恭喜你们获得今天比赛的胜利，那也是我们 LNG 第一次接受采访，先向大家打个招呼吧。
안녕하세요. LNG 정글을 맡은 타잔입니다.
Yeah, welcome, and also in today's game, you guys have ended the losing streak and have shown super good performance. So tell us more about the preparation before this best of 3. 那今天也是终结了连败，也打得非常的漂亮。所以说在比赛前有做哪些准备吗？
일단 초중반 위주로 되게 안전하게 잘 설계하는 연습을 했던 것 같아요.
So based on we try for the strategies and preparations, we try to focus more about the early and the mid game, and we try to play more meticulously in the actual game. And definitely, you guys have shown a super good performance. And also for today, we have two rookies joined in LNG, the LP and the Kedaya, because this is their first debut in LPL. So maybe as the veteran, have you talked anything to them before today's matchup, and how do you feel about the synergy together with these two players? 那么今天呢，其实也是下路选手 LP 和可大鸭选手的 LPL 出道战嘛。那作为一个老前辈，很有经验，那我们的他赞选手或许在采访前，或许在比赛前有和他们说些什么吗？然后和他们的一个配合怎么样呢？
아직 맞춘 지는 얼마 안 돼가지고 그런데 그냥 잘하는 것 같아요.
혹시 경기하기 전에
그냥 간단하게 진장했냐 이 정도로 장난쳤던 것 같아요.
So for the dialogues before today's matchup, I just make some jokes on them. Maybe like we will get nervous for today's game, and also in terms of synergy because we haven't played together for a long time. So maybe there's so many parts we still need to practice on and have some improvements on. And also in today's game one, we feels like from the ball lane skirmishers and ball lane tower dive, you guys really got a lot of leads. So tell us more about that dive. 那其实说到第一局，你们是直接在下路有一波很漂亮的越塔，所以说当时是发生了些什么呢？
초반에 저희 바텀이 강력한 조합이라서 안 피하고 잘 설계해서 잘 나온 것 같아요.
Because for our game one, our bot deal, in terms of the champion choices, we can be super strong in the early game. So that's why we have got the very good opportunity to just make that tower dive in game one. And it feels like for today's game, you guys just put this champion Volibear on a very high priority. And in game three, you even made this to the first pick, although there are so many other champions were open. So could you know the reason for that? 那感觉今天你们对狗熊这个英雄好像有很高的优先级，第3局比赛还是一选狗熊，所以说原因是什么呢？
오늘 1, 2경기 하면서 가장 중요한 핵심 픽이라고 생각해가지고 1픽으로 먼저 가져오게 된 것 같아요.
So I think for both game 1 and 2, Volibear, this champion is a core pick, is the most significant pick for us. So that's the reason for us to just get this champion in the first place for game 3. And my last question is, in the regular season, LNG, you guys still got 5 matches left. So tell us more about the goals for this whole team. 那最后呢，也是现在常规赛我们 LNG 还有5场比赛要打。那对于赛季的目标有什么想和我们分享的吗？
아직 이제 안 좋은 기세를 잘 끊어낸 것 같아서 앞에 이제 남은 5경기도 잘 준비해가지고 좋은 경기력 보여줄 수 있을 것 같아요.
So for at this time, we still got so many parts that we still need to make some improvements on. But we will definitely try our best to work even harder to try to have a very good performance in the following matchups. And definitely congratulations again. Thank you for the sharing. 那再次恭喜你们，中文说的真的很棒。And back to you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you, Tarzan. Love to hear the inside workings of LNG, and especially to hear a little bit of ribbing, a little bit of joking, but making sure the rookies are ready to go for their first game on stage. It was a heck of a series here, and I just love to hear that perspective from Tarzan in the end.
It's so good because, you know, you're coming in with new members. It's stage first time for a lot of them, and the fact that you're just able to joke around with them. And you know what? I love our interviews. I love the fact that we can get some personality to some of these players that sometimes can be so limited.
He was able to answer it in Chinese. It was super cool. He felt confident
it's super
enough.
nice.
It was super cool.
Super nice as well. I feel like just in general, Tarzan had a great performance today, especially on the Volibear, as he already talked about himself. But I do feel like he can be happy. They did turn it around. They finally got some of those positives for LNG, and I think the first game we saw today, that's the best we've seen LNG the entire season. If they're able to replicate that again, then they'll look very scary heading into these playoffs.
They will, and we're getting closer and closer. And speaking of, we got more action on the way. It's been an absolute pleasure to cast alongside you, my friend. We got to hand off the torch because that was only the first series of this night. We still got 2 more after this. We're going to take a little break, but on the other side of it, Penguin and Ender, very excited about that one, are going to be bringing you Suning versus JDG, followed by RNG versus EDG. It's going to be some bangers, so make sure you stick around.